So Prodigy has a new collab series disc out, the Archive. A slightly overstable mid-range, which honestly might be one of the best mid-ranges Prodigy has ever made. Because I'm gonna be honest with you, I've never really been a fan of how Prodigy's mid-ranges felt in my hand. Their mid-ranges are just like a very unique shape, like the edge of the rim here. It's always like rounded and sharp on the edge, which most of their mid-ranges are shaped like that. It's just a matter of how high that wing is, and they're on the deeper side. It's similar to the PA3 in the sense that the shape is just not a stereotypical or conventional shape for mid-ranges on the market. So you're either gonna love the feel of it because there's nothing else like it, or you're just not gonna be a fan of it. And I've been more on the not a fan of it side. They're great mids, like the M4 here. This is an Isaac Robinson signature series. I got these at apollodiscgolf.com. But this is a great disc. It's dead straight, gives you a touch of turn, very little fade. It's just, it doesn't feel great in my hand. It's a little bit deeper, it just doesn't feel comfortable for me. And that's most the case with most of their mids because they're shaped all similarly. The Archive though, it's actually shaped like a standard, more conventional mid-range. If you look at the edge, it's shaped almost like a Buzz is. It's just a little bit thicker of a shoulder, and it's still a little on the deeper side. So if you're not a huge fan of deeper mids and you haven't liked most of Prodigy's mids because of that, I don't think this is gonna change your mind, but the shape of it is just more standard of what you would expect on the market. Like I said, it's almost shaped like a fatter Buzz that has like a slight dome to it. Like I wouldn't call it domey per se, but it's definitely not flat. It's got a decent slight dome to the top of it, almost like a Fuse dome. So if you put like the Fuse dome on like a fat Buzz bottom, then this is it. Now these do come in both the 400 plastic and the 500 plastic, the 500 being like their opaque star type plastic and the 400 being like their champ type plastic. The 400 is a little bit softer though, just it's a matter of what you like on that sense. 500, it feels very similar. I would say the 500, I don't know how to explain it. The 500 just has like maybe a little bit more grip, but the 400 is almost like tacky to the feel of it. If you try the 400 plastic on like the distortion, for example, that's what this stuff is, and it feels great. Even when it's like wet, you can still grip it pretty well. This is probably the best gripping premium plastic on the market for wet conditions, in my opinion. But the 500 might have like slightly less dome, but they're pretty similar in the dome category. It's just whether or not you want the opaque plastic or the translucent, in my opinion. But the feel of this is solid. And being a Buzz thrower myself, I absolutely love how this is shaped more like a Buzz, but it doesn't fly nearly like my Buzz. This Archive is surprisingly overstable. Now the numbers on the Archive are 5502. So when I saw that, I was thinking that's basically like my overstable Buzz. So I brought out like my 4-claw Buzz, for example. This is much more overstable than that is. I would say this is closer to like a 2.5 fade or even like a 3 fade. Because even compared to like a C-Line MD3, this is noticeably more overstable than that. Like it can handle more torque than it and give a stronger fade. They still have a good amount of glide because of that dome on it. So I wouldn't put this in the same category as like an overstable mid-range. I would put this right in between that. So like a shot where there might be a little bit of a wind and it would make like your stable Buzz turn over or your MD1 turn over a little bit more than you wanted. But something like a Justice or an MX1 or even an Ultra would hook up more than you want. This would be it. Because even in like a 12-ish mile-per-hour headwind I had, I threw it flat to maybe a little bit of an Anheuser with the 500 plastic one, and it's still just dead straight and even came back a little bit and fought out of it at the end. When the M4, this Spectrum M4 is actually a little bit stable, I think, for M4s. I haven't thrown a whole lot of M4s, so don't quote me on that. But this one like still turned and like held an Annie. But with no wind, this is just dead straight. Touch a turn, touch a fade, when this like doesn't turn at all and hooks up. So it'd be a pretty good complement to an M4. You can pick up an Isaac Robinson M4 at Apollo Disc Golf and an Archive at Apollo Disc Golf. I would think there's still a little bit more of a gap that you need to fill in between these, but these would pair really well on the course. But regarding the stability, it really surprised me because when you think of Isaac Robinson, at least I think of just the major that he just took down at the Champions Cup and his win at Idlewild last year. I'm filming this at the start of Idlewild, so I have no idea if he won this year. But those kind of courses, like he threw a lot of like hyzer flips on those, and that's what I think of when I think of Isaac Robinson, is just hyzer flipping through the woods, dead straight shot, lacing lines, hitting huge putts. That's what I think of. I don't think of that when I think of the Archive. This is just an overstable. It's not like a hyzer flip at all. I don't even know if you would use this a whole lot in the woods unless you're like Gannon and you throw everything on an anhyzer even through gaps. So it's just a little interesting that I think he went with an overstable mid-range, but I do have a hunch about this. So I've heard that like the M2 that a lot of the pros like, there's like a certain run of M2 that's more overstable, and that's the specific M2 that the pros like. This is just what I've heard. I don't know for sure. Even that like most recent run of M2 that they did for Gannon, I think they even said that they tried to make it close to the run that he likes, like the more overstable side of M2s. That might be what Isaac was going after with this, making a mold that's like out of the box, a little bit more overstable, like those like money M2s that they really like. That's just a guess. I haven't thrown M2s or that run of M2, but this is definitely like overstable, has the glide, perfect in between like a workable dead straight mid-range and an overstable one. But because of that torque resistance, I was actually really surprised with how well this handled a forehand, because most of the time I cannot power mid-ranges on a forehand whatsoever. I just don't have a clean enough form for it. But this one, I can put a decent amount on it, like for like longer approaches, and it's still just dead straight and finished to the right for me. It was like a straighter zone, like it's obviously further than a zone, but that's like another really good use case for this disc, is having it be that longer, touch straighter than like an overstable zone A2 distortion type disc. The only thing you'd have to get over would be the depth of the forehand. Oh, and before I forget, these are available at apollodiscgolf.com right now. They released today, and every Archive also comes with like a miniature M4 that has Isaac Robinson's stamp on it. It's bigger than a mini, but it's smaller than a disc. I've heard it actually throws pretty far. Every order of the Archive will get one of those for free with it. So yeah, check it out at apollodiscgolf.com. And yeah, also let's talk about the flashing really quick, because I feel like that's just a big like talking point or big red flag for people when it comes to Prodigy. I really think they've gotten significantly better with that. Granted, I think a lot of it was just like blown out of proportion. Don't get me wrong, I think there were like a few people that had like really bad flashing, but that got blown out of proportion to where they thought like all of them did. The ones that we got in, it's not bad flashing at all. It's like normal flashing. Also, I think they're moving to another manufacturing process, because all the new stuff that they've come out with, it feels really nice. Like there's no flashing, if any, on these Archives. And that's like the same across the board with all the new molds that they've been releasing. So if you're worried about that, like don't be. It's not. These feel great. But yeah, let me know what you think about the Archive. I was really impressed with it. You guys did a great job, Isaac and Prodigy. I think this is a great mid-range. But you can pick these up at apollodiscgolf.com, and thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one.